the Hong Kong government is for them to evolve.
Yep.
But that's happening quickly.
Yeah. Okay. Do you agree with that?
I do agree. Like in terms of how regulations are going to evolve, we first of all, like it's the understanding of the Hong Kong SAR government that we can't regulate technology. So like all our technology, all our regulations will be technology neutral, and therefore like it's principle based. And with that in mind, if it is something in relation to payment, if it is something in relation to securities and purchases and selling of such, then it should fall under the remit of certain regulators. And this it may not be perfect to all the players in the room. It may not be perfect for all the players exploring how regulations or how they should be coming about regulations in the other jurisdictions. But then if we have all the pillars, all the regulations being quite clearly defined in along all the pillars, then I do believe that it is something that is good for the industry development.
Andrew, you work across the region. You're based in Hong Kong, but you work sort of deal with lots of different regulatory landscapes for this. Is this we're seeing similar things in other markets around Asia to Hong Kong, or is it what's it look?
So I think Singapore led the way.
Yeah.
And been very proactive. Hong Kong's not far behind. We see the UAE is very proactive.
Yeah.
Some of the smaller, Japan has now stepped into the fray. Australia is making progress. And places like Thailand, we're seeing real interest. So I think the regulators realise that, and this is this sort of separation between cryptocurrency and cryptography.
Yeah.
Cryptography can really have a role to play in the way that people's assets are managed and transacted. And we want to understand what the rules and regulations, what the rules are for this to operate, because it's quite different. In the past, we had a custodian or a trustee where you outsourced a lot of those responsibilities. In this regard, we're actually outsourcing it to cryptography. And this is something new, and they need to understand that. And we have the only public blockchain mutual fund that we have in the US. It's the only one in existence today. We expose the unit price, the distributions on-chain, available to anyone. That, from a regulator's perspective, is something they've never seen before. I think there's a lot of capabilities that they haven't had previously, and they're trying to understand what they will mean for them, how they regulate, but also how do they protect investors.
Okay.
And that's the key driver. All the regulators want to protect investors, but they also want to be, offering this new technology.
I spent quite a lot of time sort of talking about Asia in the sort of research I do, and sort of in many cases you can't talk about Asia because there's so much difference within Asia, so many different markets, different demographics, different regulations. Are we looking very different in Asia from a regulatory perspective, or is there some sort of some harmonization happening here to make it a bit easier?
I guess to me, in terms of regulations on stable coins, that would be some convergence in terms of how not only Asia but the other jurisdictions will be looking at it. In terms of how crypto as or like a virtual asset as a form of investment, there will still be a different point of view and different takes. One thing that Andrew mentioned about certain jurisdictions, I would humbly disagree. I would believe that like certain jurisdictions would have appeared to be quite advanced in terms of how liberalized its approach could be. But then sometimes if you if you are putting everything all the service providers on a list, for instance, you are almost endorsing the firms that are on the list. And sometimes, if you are only giving, you are endorsing them, you're putting them on the list at the point where you have checked their ability, but then there's no ongoing monitoring or there's no ongoing checking of progress, then it could lead to some discrepancy in terms of how investors would expect a regulator to deal with such regulated or endorsed companies. So this is something that I am aware of. Now, in terms of how a lot of such technologies or cryptography would be applicable to the general financial services industry. We are actually publishing a paper on March 18th, and I think this is how we are trying to go about developing the Web3 industry. It's not only join them to Hong Kong and like allow them to deal with their own projects elsewhere, but we are trying to push the agenda forward by having it applicable to the traditional financial services industry. So please do pay attention to our report.
Excellent, thank you very much. Do share it to the audience.
Just to follow up, one of the things I'm finding is it also depends on the venue where people will be able to transact crypto. So when you go to countries like the Philippines, which is largely mobile wallet driven, there's the ability to offer a cash account and a crypto account side by side and move from one to the other. And I think in these markets where you may face this from a mobile wallet, people are less concerned and regulators are less concerned. Whereas if you're facing it through a distributor, say going to HSBC, I think the regulatory burden is a lot higher because you're a third party acting on your behalf. So I think that's where, in these mobile wallet-driven economies, where it'll drive a lot more inclusion. So I think that's the key differentiator, is how you actually get access to it.
Just on that point, it's